I remember that I had to have my tonsils out and my adenoids burned, and the doctor had given me Vicodin and a few other prescription medication. And I remember taking it and feeling that the way I felt. And I was like, man, this is awesome.
Last year in 2013, the Partnership for Drugfree.org and the MetLife Foundation released startling statistics on teen drug usage and drug abuse. It was reported based on study that approximately 1/3 of all teenagers had reported abusing a drug that was given to them by a physician, and fully 1/3 of those had done so before the age of 14.
The week before high school, I had an incident where I sustained a closed head injury.
I had a sports injury my sophomore year of high school. I messed up my knee playing basketball.
And the injuries that soccer had given me, by the time I was in 8th grade, I was already prescribed a Vicodin.
It was a fairly serious injury. I went to the hospital, and while in the hospital, I got morphine for the pain, and I was sent home with Tylenol 3.
Taking that pill, it gave me a feeling that I had never felt before. It filled that void that I thought I was missing.
By the time I was a sophomore, I was being prescribed morphine, and that eventually that chemical addiction just took over.
I noticed they did something to me. They gave me, or had an effect on me, and made me feel different.
I tried the Vicodin that she gave me and absolutely loved every second of it. I couldn't walk right, I couldn't talk right, and looking back, it's kind of crazy that that's the feeling that I loved, but at that moment, nothing mattered, and that's all I wanted, was my mind to be silent.
I started when I was about 14 years old with a sports injury, and I played football and I wrestled, and I was a great football player, and I was a varsity football player by the time I was 16 years old, and I got an injury and the doctor prescribed me Vicodin. And as a result of being prescribed Vicodin, I picked up this addiction, and I was addicted to pills, and I was a kid.
It was given to us, this Vicodin, and we were told whenever he needed it for pain to just go ahead and give him one. So we started with that, and it was very effective for the pain. I mean, he was basically no longer in pain whenever we'd give him a Vicodin. And it got to be more common. He continued to play sports. There was no, with the Vicodin, he was able to participate in football, continue to participate in wrestling. He wrestled as a heavyweight wrestler. And we took him off, he came off the floor one day wrestling, I remember, and was just in so much pain that we took him back, and the doctor said, well, give him more Vicodin.
By the time I was 18 years old, I was full-blown addicted to opiates. I had tried heroin for my first time, and I was strung out by the time I left high school.
At that time, as educated as we were and as smart as we were, we didn't know that the opiates in the Vicodin were synthetic, basically like a synthetic heroin. It's an opiate. Now, I've done research since, and they had opium dens 3,000 years ago in China. If you look at who the opium addicts were in China, it wasn't the poor peasants and the poor people. It was the sons and daughters of the wealthy and the aristocrats that became opium addicts and spent their time in these opium dens. And that's what we're doing again today, except we're doing it in a different way. We don't start them on opium. What we do is we start our kids in a sports program, and somebody prescribes to him or her, and they don't tell you when they give it to the parents. They should say, here, take this substance. It's just like the addictive properties of all these opiate addicted people for 3,000 years, and give this to your child. I mean, I wouldn't have taken it. I was, what are you, nuts? There's no way I'm giving this to my kid. No way. But what instead I hear is, oh, be careful, don't give him too much because the Tylenol in it may affect his liver.
We have to remember that using these kind of medications, even in situations where the patient may not need them, can lead eventually to more serious problems with drug abuse and drug experimentation.
So when I was a junior, I was captain of the soccer team, varsity team, and I had put my hand through a window, and the doctors had given me some Vicodin, and from then on, it was like a slow snowball effect. My buddies, wanted me to try this, and before I never wanted to. One pill led to another pill, led to 3 pills, until I wanted to make this financial decision because Vicodin was costing so much money, and it wasn't getting me high enough. So I went to OxyContin, and when I got up to about 10 OxyContins a day at $35 to $40 a pill, I was like, man, I gotta find something else, something cheaper, but it's gonna get me as high. And so I started snorting heroin.
I think if they had explained to us as his parents the addictive nature behind Vicodin, maybe we would have thought twice. Maybe a Tylenol would have been a better choice of the prescription versus a Vicodin. Being parents, we're trusting our medical profession to give us things that are going to help our children. Not blaming the medical profession at all, but had we been given the ability to make an informed decision, probably we would have made an entirely different decision.
Kid gets hurt, don't let him give Vicodin. Maybe temporarily, but not on a per-needed basis, not 120 pills, not over any kind of time. It's got to be immediate and done, if you do it at all.
I think what we fall into as a mistake is that patients, parents feel that when the doctor prescribes it, we're not perfect, and some of the doctors will prescribe narcotics. That's the way we've been trained. But there's an education piece, and I think the parents have to take that role and responsible that we know it's highly addictive, and how do they want to manage it with their child.
It's a short term for acute pain, though. It's not for chronic pain, especially in dentistry. And there's dentists out there that prescribe 30, 60, 90, refill after refill or refill. I can't imagine a dental problem that would ever need something like that.
Doctors must realize, as well as the patients and or their parents, that long-term opiate use is really a short-term prescription for drug overuse. And in case not only even for children, but also the geriatric population as well.
A patient just told me today, my grandfather just passed away, and he was on hospice, and I was cleaning his house out. I found over 500 Vicodin, at least 1,000 Tylenol 3s. These drugs, the patients aren't even taking. A lot of them they're not taking. These drugs are just left in people's homes, and the kids are going to find them. And when the kids find them, that's where it goes crazy.
I think pain tolerance is very good in our adolescent community, and because of the highly addictive component of opiates, I try to limit the use of opiates. If you don't need it at all, I wouldn't use it.
If I'm an already addict going to a doctor and the doctor can tell, hey man, you're taking way too much of this, why do you keep giving the medicine? Because you're killing so many people.
I often say to the people that I work with, don't forget that when you're educating and when you're treating that patient, you need to make sure that you're also educating the people that they're with, especially those who are most close to them, their spouses, their loved ones, their families. Because this isn't a problem that is going to only be dealt with by the patient. It's going to be dealt with by everybody they come into contact with. So those people need to be educated too. And that's one of the responsibilities we as physicians have to consider.
I remember when he first started in recovery, he had a sponsor that had just gotten out of prison and had been in prison quite a while. He had this tattoo on his arm, on his shoulder to come down. It was a demon, and this demon had people in its mouth, and it was just the ugly, awful looking thing. And I was talking to the guy who's painting something. My son and I were talking, trying to start the recovery process for him. And I looked at that and I said, I know that demon. I know exactly where that demon resides, and he resides in opiates and heroin and this addiction. This addictive process is this demon, and this was some ugly thing. And that demon is in your life, and he don't leave. He won't leave. He controls your child, owns your child. And it starts with a 15-year-old innocently taking some Vicodin.
If the doctor wouldn't have initially wrote that original prescription, which first introduced me to opiates, I think my life would probably have ended up with the American dream. I think a lot of the choices that I would have made would have been different, and I would have a different path. I'd probably have the 2.5 kids and a white picket fence.
Prescription drugs have many side effects. They can make you puke, they can make you feel this, they can make you feel that. But the side effect that has hurt us all so much, watching my dear friend crying over his son's casket at 22 years old, who was an all-star athlete, a 4.0 student, college bound, you can't change that. And that all started from a script of Vicodin when he was in high school for an injury. That's the real side effect of these drugs.